Oh, retourner encore avec saison 3 en nous yon apprendre kon lot. Nom c'est Yuseline. M'a souhaité nous toute bonne année et c'est un plaisir pour nous rencontrer ensemble avec nous l'autre fois encore sur plateforme en nous apprendre kon lot là. Et je dis nous venons avec une surprise pour nous et sûr que nous ouais moun ça déjà et nous ouais une petite biographie de qui moun ça est mais malgré tout, je connais qui j'en ai, m'a quitté moun font présenter et puis fait qu'on qui est. Hello, Milredy.
Hi. Jean-Yves dit, nom c'est Milredy Joseph. Je vais me présenter son nom unique, Milredy Joseph. Moi, c'est un docteur, un MD, medical doctor. J'ai un pilote accolades, un pilote diplôme. We're not going to get into it right now. Toute vie, c'est la santé. J'ai commencé as a nurse, une infirmière. Dieu progressed through it, went on to medical school, became a medical doctor, and now I'm working at a public hospital for New York City Health and Hospitals. It's a corporation within New York City that owns all the public hospitals, such as Kings County, Bellevue, Coney Island, Metropolitan, the Harlem Hospital, Governors, all of these hospitals. Anybody who's familiar with them within New York City knows of New York City Health and Hospitals. So it's a complex public system, healthcare system. And I've been navigating through this complex healthcare system since the beginning of my career. And hopefully I stay within this public realm. So like my bio said, I'm a public advocate. I'm a speaker for the public. I enjoy what I do. And hopefully we can continue to do it together.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, pour commencer, on connaît bien plus le monde qui a dit que yo pas ouais Jennifer posté sur social media. Yeah. Jennifer a quelques bagages à préparer, c'est ça qu'elle pas vraiment porn sur social media. Et m'a commencé par dire tout le monde bonne année parce que m'a pas de chance pour dire bonne année tout, donc il dit bonne année. Et son plaisir pour me gagner sur plateforme là, sur Milredy, ou par contre depuis qu'il m'a prétendre ça. Donc, à ce là, je suis content qu'on l'a et je me parle pour tout ça qu'on va le dire à ce là.
Should be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I hope so.
Yeah, definitely.
Tout le monde connaît qui ça en nous y en apprendre qu'on l'autre hier et Jennifer ensemble avec bien que Karine pas là jeudi hein, toujours passer information qui bon pour communauté qui c'est communauté en nous communauté haïtienne hein, et mais nous tous connaissons que émission ça plus basée sur santé mentale en nous que ça il est vraiment tabou dans le pays en nous Haïti les gens de parler de santé mentale ils sont drôles pour eux. So aujourd'hui moi Milredy avec Jennifer après il y a une petite conversation de ça nous penser et de qui genre nous t'a aider communauté pour yo ka gen une approche ou acceptation qui mieux quand il s'agit de santé mentale et surtout quand il s'agit de santé mentale à ti moun. Eh oui, so Milredy sujet aujourd'hui à la plus basé sur early intervention. Comme nous tous connaissons, bien que moi j'ai pas j'ai plus expérience dans ça, mais je travaille directement sur ça, dans la petit moun petit. Je dis pi gros challenge que moi rencontré c'est acceptance. À parents yo, si par exemple son petit moun ta gen 2 ans et puis petit moun ça poko gen parole du tout ou ka parler ensemble avec parents fait connaît que parler avec pédiatre petit moun nan ou essayer faire une évaluation ouais si petit moun nan OK ça pas veut dire petit moun nan gen un problème parce que tout petit moun différent gen petit moun qui parle état et ça ka pas un problème mais ça pas retirer rien du tout dans parents ou nan ti moun nan si yo checker Make sure.
Absolutely. Early intervention is key, is essential to a child's normal health and growth and development. Mais on va nous rentrer deep au profondeur about child growth and development and early intervention for nous définir, for nous connaître qui ça mental health. Yeah. And I feel like that's what a problem stems from, is that there's a lack of differentiation between what is mental health and mental illness. Côté un pile parent pense que mental health and mental illness are interchangeable, and it's not. On s'en tout le monde doit practice mental health. Même child là growing up has to practice their own mental health, and that can affect their normal growth and development. But par exemple, on petit monde qui fait, that's the most traumatizing event in a person's life. Being born is the #1 most traumatizing event in a person's life. So traumatizing that we repress that memory. Nous pas songer, qui songe jouer au fait? Qui songe jouer au fait? Pour qui ça nous pas songer jouer au fait? It's the trauma that we went through, plus and that lack of understanding for that trauma, based on the underdeveloped brain, fait nous repress the memory of being born. So imagine tout le monde qui fait là, qui get tout stress là sur lui. On va ensemble là? Growing up, being thrust into a world. Now, just imagine being born. You're thrust into a foreign world. Ou un paquet d'étrangers que vous pas jamais, ou tant de paquets de voix que vous pas habitué d'entendre. Moun ap maye, moun ap photo, moun ap bagay, ya force au crier. You're being overwhelmed with all of these senses. Ou on va ensemble là? When you point you mene into another environment. They spend 3 days in the hospital, they get used to it. They're, okay, this is my world, right? This is how it is. Then we take that child and move them once again from that environment to a completely different environment. So from that stage, the child is growing up, and we have to focus on the mental health of that child and how they respond to the stresses in their life and all these stresses that they're dealing with. If stress of being an only child, of having other siblings, of dealing with their parents, of dealing with their environment, of getting to learn and grow up in that environment. And that can affect the child's playtime. It could affect the child's speech. It could affect the child's social interactions, emotional development. It's a tout ça that we have to focus on. And that's when we talk about mental health of the child. So like Yusuf was saying, when we have a parent saying, hey, maybe I'm getting 2 ans, pas parler. What's going on? It doesn't necessarily have to do with mental illness. Sometimes it can. It doesn't necessarily have to do with a developmental delay, right? It has to do with other stressors in the child's life. And that's the benefits of early intervention. Like, and then you get the help you need early on. You don't have to necessarily understand or be an expert in what the child is going through to say, ça pas normal. And normal doesn't mean something is right, or pas normal doesn't mean something is wrong.
Exactement. Et c'est point ça. Et bien content que vous commencez à gen qui pas comprendre qui ça mental health est. Gen qui confuse mental health avec mental illness. Et je pense que dans la communauté, c'est confusion ça. Mettez nous, culturellement, nous pas gen ça là quand nous. Et façon nous penser mental health avec mental illness là. Ah, ok, si depuis moun nan dit, il besoin de soin mental que il faut. So, ça vient faire nous pas intéressés à apprendre rien de mental health. Qui ça mental health? C'est façon penser, façon réagir. Mais c'est ça que mental health. Si vous recevez tout besoin que vous gagnez, qui nan ou avez un mental health qui normal. Peut-être qu'on a besoin de balance, parce que je pense que nous tous besoin de balance. Vous comprenez? Mais je pense que confusion avec, oh, débutant de mental health, oh, moun sa fou. Non. Mental health, c'est vous-même, c'est le système.
Exactly. And the balance. Balance.
Yeah, balance. Façon réagir à une situation, gen pour avec santé mentale. Façon sentir. à telle situation, gen pour ak santé mentale. Et des fois, façon sentou, à yon situation, qu'on faut rendre compte que ou traumatisé, de yon bagay qui t'arrive très longtemps, peut-être que l'autre timoun.
Exactly. Yes.
That's mental.
Yes. And there are certain studies, like I was saying, that correlates the act of being born to certain delays in development, where the brain is actually accommodating learning to deal with these different stresses. You know, these different things, stimulants that are coming to you from all different sides. And like you said, mental health is about balance, about learning to cope with all these stimulants, learning to cope with all these different stresses. Stress exists, but what is mental health? Mental health is how we cope with the stresses. Like key response, we learn to find, or we learn to interact with them in order to find a certain balance in life. And going back to early childhood development, si moun stresse en pile. Si moun stresse en pile. And especially in our communities, growing up in the Haitian community as a Haitian immigrant, coming to the United States at an early age, I came here at 4 or 5 years old. And I was confused because I'm dealing with biculturalism.
Yep.
You can't, like, it's and non, ma pa moun di se pa Ameriken ye. L'école la yo di se pa Haitien ye. And I don't know where I fit in, what's going on. And the kids are going to interact and react different ways to different stresses. Like you do, most children, they outwardly react with aggression, but inwardly react with depression and anxiety. Like to anxiety and depression that they feel, you can't be undone, and they bottle them up. And then they scream for you to hear them with aggression. And some kids even recoil, like they go inside of themselves like a turtle and they just hide there. And these are the stresses that eventually, if we don't find some sort of early intervention method or catch them early on to help these kids or these children learn how to promote healthy development and balance in their lives, that can develop from mental health to mental illness, or that can even have some sort of psychosomatic effect where they develop into physical illnesses.
Exactly.
But this is why, like, I'm glad when you approached me, we're talking about early intervention. It's like I felt, wow, this is something I really wanted to talk about. This is something that's not, I wouldn't say bothering me, but something that I've been thinking about a long time. And I've been addressing or trying to address this conundrum, especially within my own culture, about the growth and development of children, where I speak a lot of times with my parents or my aunts and my uncles or other people in my community. And the way we address child rearing is different. And that's another aspect to growth and development, the culture aspect. Like, for example, signe Chinois, signe Haitien, signe American, signe Panyola, everybody has different ways of raising their children. Everybody has different cultural biases instilled within them to address what mental health is. Like, I remember, sometimes the child needs to cry to express what they're feeling.
Or tell them, oh, boys don't cry. Yes.
Men don't cry. Men don't cry.
But they forget that boys are humans.
Absolutely.
They have emotions. They have feelings. They feel things.
Yeah. So dealing with children, I always say that I'm not a pediatrician and peds. It's the emotional attachment I have to children that makes pediatrics so difficult for me. Is I look at children as little humans that cannot express themselves how they should. They do not have the skills and the tools to express what they need. And then, so I start reading a lot of books, and you grow in wealth of knowledge. You go to school, like you got your master's in psychology, and you work with children, and you read a lot of these books. And then you go out into the real world and you have your own kids and your own children, you deal with different children, and you realize that there's no one book to each child. Each child is different. So now what do we do with 1 million different children interacting 1 million different ways?
And that's the point. That's why I said earlier, you can't compare your children with your own self or the like siblings, because we're all unique.
Absolutely.
And
son bagay ke nou jwen la kay nou anpil. Ou ka jwen maman, par exemple, m'ale l'école et puis m'fè moyenne 3. But voisine nan petit li à l'école, il fait moyenne 9. Et puis l'autre la tali dit, ouais, comment on fait pour ça? Comment on fait pas qu'à faire moyenne 9 là? J'ai petite voisine nan fait moyenne 9 là. Ça son premier bagay qui trigger Timoun nan. So automatiquement, pas oublier que nous sorti bébé pour nous grandir. Surtout tout on a grandi, n'a pas prendre. Mais pendant n'a grandi en tout, mentalité que nous bay Timoun yo la kay nous li pas dire pas make sense non, but li trop tough. C'est vrai que n'a sorti bon demain. Genyen nan nous k'ap sorti bon. Even nous jwen éducation tough là, but genyen tout qui prend l'autre chemin. Que c'est pas ça parent table, but que décider pour l'autre chemin parce que stress la vient trop tough pour you. Like, depuis ti moun ap levé, ou dit comme ça, ou sort, petite voisine nan a fait moyenne 9, ou non pas k'ap fait moyenne 9. Là, ou getan créer yon tunnel pour lui pour connaître que le sort, so li pa arriver dans niveau, il t'a supposé arriver à.
limité.
Exactly. Ça c'est yon problème que toujours ouais. Ti moun qui sorti Haïti qui vient ici, c'est difficile pour yo des fois pour yo adapter yo. Mais as soon as yo adapter yo, ouais qui sa ti moun nan te gen nan li. Li vin briller. Yeah, surtout dans l'école ici. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's like putting it in a negative light and in a positive light. Yeah, there's a million ways you can say something, and those ways can either have a positive impact on your child or a negative impact on your child. Kwa ou di ou ben exemple, tout le monde giving la moyenne 3. So, and voisin vini avec un moyenne 9. On va dire là, pas te ka di, oh chérie, moi font moyenne 3. On nous travaille pour ça. Nous font un plus gros moyenne, 9. Ou voisine nan gen capacité puis faire, ça veut dire ou gen capacité tout. Ou ça me dit là, si c'est pas que il est impossible. Gen petit moun you deal with the limitations like using was saying. Gen say the limitations that we impose on our child without wanting to impose them, but it's us that are imposing by saying that pour qu'il soit pas ka faire. That's a limitation. On fait. That's breaking barriers. That's breaking that limitation. That's identifying what's going on and showing them that there's a possibility to get there. Okay? So yes, you can look at another child and say, hey, this child is developing at this stage faster, right? But the way you push your child can either stress them more into a more kind of hindrance. Côté, you're pas développé, mais there's another child, you push them and it helps them speed up. Like, it's an idiosyncratic effect on children. For example, chaque ti moun agit différent, chaque ti moun react différent, chaque moun agit différent, chaque moun react differently. Like, for example, toujours pour exemple, moi, avec ti seb, I can't lie about it. Lem te pitim, de mérite un pile partout. Parce que mais ti seb là, it does not react to that kind of tough love. On s'en là. Si yo kale lo bi yo le souli, il pas fonctionner. She needed more of a pushing encouragement. Okay, mi avons qu'à faire ça, nous faire ça ensemble. And then she brillait. Whereas moi-même, I needed a tougher push. Pourquoi on s'en chaque team différent? Leurs parents, spécialement parents haïtiens, étaient à comparer siblings, mais à comparer ou mais avec voisins. Ils n'ont pas réalisé que chaque team est différent. Chaque team going on a different method to accomplish what they need and their goals that they want to get to. And like I said, I keep bringing this back to early intervention. That's what early intervention helps you with. It identifies certain goals or developmental goals that the child can reach and help them with the tools that they need to accomplish these goals at their own pace. Like I can get a little personal. My second child, the middle child, he speaks his own language. I understand him completely because he has certain words that he puts to certain items, and those words are consistent. Like, for example, he doesn't say apple, he could say pearl, right? But he consistently calls an apple pearl. So every time he says that, I say apple, and I repeat it until eventually he says apple. Whereas my first child, home with Spanish words that I never even taught him. So every child picks different things differently. Whereas the child, his emotional intelligence is so high. Whereas, like, if I pretend to fall down, he said, "Oh, Papi, are you okay? Are you okay?" Or he said, "Papi, are you hurt?" Now he doesn't say, "Papi, are you hurt?" Clearly, one, he said, "Papi, you hurt?" But I understand what he's trying to say.
Yeah.
Does that mean that he's developmentally delayed? Yes, the word delayed based on what the books is trying to tell you shows some sort of delay. But what I'm trying to say is that he's getting there at his own speed, where you know that early on and you find the tools available to help him instead of saying, oh, laughing, because a lot of parents I see, they have fun with their kids. Oh, he Paul, and they repeat the same words that the child is saying. As a tool that you use in speech therapy is when the child says something, you repeat it the correct way. They say it, the child, like for example, say, I want pearl, just like that, right? You say, oh, you want an apple? Apple? And you have the child and say, yes. And you say, yes, I want an apple. And the child repeats, yes, I want an apple. After 20 times of saying, yes, I want an apple, the child eventually says, yes, I want an apple. Those are the certain tools that you can use. Taking that back to cultural, for example, the Haitian parent would have said, and that puts more stress on the child. Like I was talking to a colleague of mine about this situation because I felt kind of stressful. And she let me understand that imagine the stress that a middle child has, right? The middle child looks at the older child who's at a different level of growth and development than he is, trying to catch up to that child, but yet not understanding that their brains are not developing at the same speed. They are different levels of development. And then that middle child looks at the younger child, the baby, and says, hey, how come you're more tolerant towards the baby and you're not tolerant towards me? Now understanding that the baby's brain is developing at a slower pace than his brain is developing, different stages. So now you have a parent who do not understand the normal growth and development of her children and wishes that every child that they have could be like the oldest child. Or when they all grow up, all the child could be like the youngest child, where they don't understand that each child has different experiences. Even if they grew up in the same house, you will have 3 different people, 3 different experiences, 3 different perspectives.
That is right. That's exactly I am trying.
On lot bagay tou, gen 2 parents qui, takou parents Haiti qui gen moyen tou, and then, des fois, yo wè que parents qui gen moyen et qui gen on lot perspective de jan bagay, de jan éducation fonctionner. Ou ka wè ti moun nan gen doit pas réussi, kon yo cherché yon jan yo te ka wè si gon moun ki te ka bay ti moun nan leçon. Là où elle y est pour l'autre chemin. Instead, au lieu de dire que ti moun nan ou sort ou pas capable, yo cherche un gens, puis ouais, pour tes problèmes nan yé. Yo cherche un monde qui pour bal leçon, exactement. Et gen même parents tout qui décide de mener ti moun yo al wè yon moun, un docteur, qui chita pour le parler. But shit al wè docteur là, c'est kounya là nous a développé ça.
Exactly, Jennifer,
Yeah,
exactly.
nous pas vraiment dire ça, but yeah.
C'est
But il
consensus ça,
toujours, yeah. Et
nous
des fois,
problème.
c'est pas chercher un monde pour bâtir ti monde dans leçon. Si monde nan gen doit gen bon cerveau, but ti gen doit c'est pas là problème nan ye. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a start. Chercher mon belle leçon is a start.
Yeah.
Mais j'en dis la mentalité ça, nous sorti Haïti avec. Là, nous rentrons aux États-Unis, nous pays qui gagne ressources, qui charge ressources. Ou comment ça me dit là? Mais ressources qui existent, they're not just going to fall in front of your door. You have to look for them. You have to ask for them. You have to open yourself up to finding them. Like with early childhood interventions, you call 311. It's accessible to every child between 0 and 3. You call 311 and you just ask. They send somebody over to evaluate the child. You go to your child's pediatrician and you ask. You say, hey, quand tu me suspectes, moi, je ne sais pas trop parler bien.
Yeah.
Like, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid that the world is going to judge you, that society is going to judge you, that they're going to base this on your sins or things or certain, I don't know what to say.
And yeah, and to add up what you just said, and one thing you have to have clear as a parent, when you decide to focus on society being judgmental, you're not helping your children. They are your priority. Any decision you are going to take, it's for them, for their well-being.
Et je crois que avant que vous preniez décision, premier bagage pour vous faire, c'est acceptance. C'est accepter yeah, ti moun mwen gon problème. But c'est difficile. C'est vraiment difficile pour accepter.
But the thing is, Jennifer, ti moun nan ka pa vraiment gon problème.
Exactly.
Qui j'en définit un problème? Qui ça un problème? Like, problem versus solution mentality.
Yeah.
So, problem là, you dis, oh, il y a un problème. Mais chaque problème a une solution.
Parce que bon djou, façon yon ti moun levé depuis te ti bébé, ta cause, il prend ti temps pour y parler.
Oui.
Exemple, il y a bon moun qui comprennent, là où bon ti bébé, ou juste verser, baby bon, faire un gaz, mettez dormir. Non. Non. Ou pendant wa baby bon, facial expression.
Ou parler, ou chanter pour lui.
Chanter pour lui. Lire pour lui. Like, treat that baby like a child.
Même ben you want me to on TV for the child. Continue, like, get it, say the show my team on me regarder. Then moi show pas parler, comme moi pas parler normal. Et puis regarder parce que team ne pas mimically. That's what they're gonna mimic. On a something, c'est ça après répéter. Mais là bah say like for example, depuis au bébé on parle avec, on chanter pour vous, on lire pour vous. Yo tande, yo comprendre ça. Même là pas qu'on répondre, mais yo tande son like your facial expressions, they're gonna mimic these.
Exactly.
Show them the steps that they have to take.
Et c'est la partie early intervention nan vini. Parce que des fois, really, c'est pas parce que ti moun nan gon problème. Ok, ou ka inquiet, ouais, ok, parce que ti moun sa gen 2 ans, il t'a supposé même 2-3 mois, il t'a supposé qu'a dit, même s'il pas dit clair, vous comprenez? Bon fait ça, c'est juste pour m'ka clair.
And so what si ti moun nan problème? Fallait moun nan ki gen problème. So,
mais voilà. Parce que
they can't cope, they cannot become a functional member of society. They cannot grow up to function within society with what they have. That's why early intervention helps them cope with the problem, learn to cope with the problem, learn to grow with the problem, learn to live with the problem. Chaque problème a une solution. That's why I hate the word normal. What's
normal?
Exactly.
Like, what's normal? And to go back to normal, what's normal? Je toujours penser, nous toutes, il y a un petit problème mental. Mais si qui pas te fait dans tant que et parents nous t'es ouvert assez pour te ah ouais pour ta early intervention pour ta ouais yo mental health consultant pour ta ouais yo thérapie sur ça avec nous fou la problème mental.
C'est ça qui fait gagner un mot que on pas jamais capable on pas jamais capable overcome li vraiment. Le monde appelle ti mon retarded. Son mot que m'still beaucoup ka habitué ensemble avec lui.
Non, son mot yo retiré même dans
Exactly.
ISM là.
But mon yo utilise le style. Yeah. Je trouve li vraiment insultant. Yeah. Just for fun, yo kon apre le moun kon sa. Even ti moun nan l'école ka bully lot ti moun, kon ap di ti moun kon sa tou. Surtout le ti moun nan smart, et puis yo trouve que trop smart, yo toujours ap bully parce que la pat ou bagay, yo toujours ap di, oh, look like a retarded. Like, tout ça capable de trauma toujours pour ti moun nan tou.
Yeah, that's bullying. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's trigger words. Like we have to be careful how we use those words around our kids, and especially not sometimes what a lot of parents don't understand is not even what you say to your kids, is what you say around your kids. Therefore, you're joking with your friends, while parling on the telephone, and then you're having your conversation. Mais Tim non là, l'attendez tout ça wap di. Tim non pas sous bon la gars télévision, mais l'attendez tout ça wap di man. So you have to be careful of what you say around your kids. Imagine like that's one thing I started realizing. But it's as I say you man. Like I used to take it for granted. Like I was a child, get my mom, get back home. I never understood it from the perspective of parents. How important this responsibility is. You are in charge of somebody else's life. My God. Once up man. Like even about getting rid of your stigmatisms, your biases. Like you said, you focus on the child. You do what's right for your child. You don't care about what society is gonna say. You don't care about what the neighbor is gonna say. You don't care about what other kids his age are. You do what's right for your child, you know? And in early intervention does not mean that your child has an issue. And so what if they do have an issue, you find the solution early. That's why it's called early intervention. And there's the study that I was reading recently. I actually forgot by who, where they found a correlation between early intervention and what we call a successful life, or for example, economical success or job satisfaction or quality of life in anybody, in adults. So basically, it's the amount of stresses that the child is dealing with, and it becomes a toxic, stressful environment. For example, if the child do not have these coping mechanisms to deal with that toxic environment or to deal with that toxic stress level, and we're not providing the child with an environment to deal with it, some of our reactions as parents actually add on to that stress level. And that child maintains a hyperinflated sense of stress that they just stop talking, or they rest, they don't walk anymore, or they used to eat good and drink on the table, they stopped. And you notice that there's a change in that child. And what's going on is the stress that they're dealing with. And sometimes it's the stress as parents. We deal with stresses at work. We deal with stresses in our environment and society, on the train. And we take that stress and we bring it back home with us.
Yep.
Now the child is dealing with stresses of growing up, becoming like you, and then you're adding the stress of your life on top of a child without any mechanisms to cope with that stress. So as parents, we have to be careful.
And that's why I tend to understand little by little some of the kids' reactions are like have a lot to do with their environment.
Yep.
And I'm glad that you talk about toxic stress. Toxic stress is the worst. And there's like many aspects of it. It could be like a child who have abusive parents whether they are abusive towards him or not, but toward each other. And this child, you know, is there, seeing everything, hearing everything. And is probably aggressive towards other kids.
Yeah.
That's toxic.
Yeah. Yeah. Or let's flip the script. A child who's ignored, who's not getting the attention that they need.
Exactly.
And then tends to be aggressive towards other children seeking that attention, seeking that reaction, that they want a reaction. They don't care if it's a positive or a negative reaction. They just want to feel something.
They want to be seen.
They want to be seen. Yeah.
And you know, that's the kind, I think you were
Yeah.
No.
yeah, that's probably something you wanted to express, you know, and like you feel like, okay, they're not listening, like they don't, because it's usually that. And sometimes parents think, oh, the child, you know, the quiet child, you know, good child, you know, don't give me any problem, you know. And the one that's more challenging is the worst. Oh my God.
That was a challenge. Oh,
you tell me Milredy did something? I'm not
believe it.
and it shouldn't be they shouldn't have this reaction.
No. Like I remember growing up.
That reaction, the worse the child's gonna be.
I remember growing up.
Like 90% chance. I'm telling you.
I remember growing up. When I first got to the United States, I was put into ESL, English as a second language, and I stayed in ESL for quite some time because I was learning. I learned to speak. In my mind, I don't ever remember not speaking. But according to my parents, I did not speak until I was 4 years old. So I did not basically speak until the time I was coming to the United States, right? When I got here, I was learning to speak both Creole and English at the same time, and I was put into ESL. Mind you, I remember certain things in my life from the age of 2. I remember certain things that happened. I remember expressing myself and talking. I guess they just didn't understand what I was saying. I didn't know they didn't understand me, but I remember speaking. And when I was put into class here in the United States, and the frustration I felt not being able to express myself or to answer basic questions that I knew, certain basic mathematical questions, 1 + 1, and I knew them. And I couldn't answer because I didn't know the language, or I would follow in class and I couldn't express myself how I wanted to express. And I acted out. I would be intolerable in the classroom. I would react certain ways. I would scream and they thought I had ADHD, which is not a problem. That could have been possible. I was never medically diagnosed with it. It could have been a possibility until one teacher actually saw something in me and said, maybe I'm not being challenged enough. Or maybe the barrier that I have is just a language barrier. It's not the fact that I'm not paying attention or I'm overreacting, I'm hyperactive. But I'm hyperactive because I'm essentially bored and frustrated within the class. So when that teacher started really addressing certain situations with me one-on-one or going through the lessons with me one-on-one, that's when they decided to place me into honors classes. And I kind of calmed down a little because my brain was not being challenged enough in the mainstream classes that I was, or below mainstream classes, where they thought that I needed more help than I was receiving. And instead is the fact that the help that I was receiving wasn't the help that I needed. And had my parents knew about early intervention, maybe somebody would have identified that a little earlier with me and say, hey, this child is not that he's developmentally delayed, is the fact that the help that he's receiving is not for the problem that he has. So identification of the problem early, that's how we find the help that these children need. Like, how are we able to accurately identify the problems that the children have instead of misdiagnosing those children or misidentifying the problems that they need and addressing certain problems that they do not have. I don't know if I'm making myself understood or not.
Mhm.
So that's the importance of early intervention. That's the importance of putting that stigmatism aside and saying, hey, my child doesn't need help. Get the help anyway. What does it? It doesn't hurt to get the help anyways. You know, if the child needs the help, great, they got it early. If the child doesn't need the help, they'll get the help anyways.
And I feel for some parents because des fois, yo même encore, yo senti yo mal parce que yo pas t'écouté à temps. Vous comprenez? Et là, yo vin ouais, vraiment vrai. Si mon ok, dans 3 ans, style pour qu'on parle, yo commence inquiet. Et qu'on y a eu reach out, besoin et aide là, et tout ça. Bien que ou même ou pas jamais ka dire ah m'te dit ça, vous comprenez? C'est pas le moment. Mais ou ka ouais frustration que yo gagne nan yo. Tant que parents et yo commencé ensemble, gen kon commencer avec speech therapy, gen kon commencer ensemble avec interaction tout et tout ça qui est des petits moun. Et yo ouais changement. Yo ouais changement. Bien que yo commencé tard, yo ouais changement. So ça a poussé au penser si yo te commencé bonheur, qui j'en ça te caé.
Absolutely, because it's called concretization of ideas. Like the more the child grows up, the more concrete certain ideas become in their minds, and the more concrete their brain development begins to get. For example, like learning languages. A child can learn up to 6 to 8 languages at the same time, whereas as an adult, if you struggle to learn a different language, right? So what does that tell you about the development of the child's brain? So the child's brain is more receptive to new ideas. So the earlier you catch certain issues, the easier it is to help the child fix or navigate these issues. The later you wait to intervene, the harder it is to actually help the child cope with these issues. So that's why early intervention is stressed between 0 to 3 years old. When the child's brain is malleable, when the child's brain is receptive to a lot of different ideas, and a specialist can help this child navigate the stresses that they feel in their lives and be able to gain coping mechanisms to grow and to learn better.
Absolutely.
That's the goal, isn't it?
That's the goal. And that's the goal. And I am going back again to some parents who like to hold the child all the time. Like they need to move their muscles. They need to build strange. They need to learn about like their body, themselves. Like, ou pas j'aimerais l'autre petit bébé fin garder dans glace?
Yeah.
Y a pas prête de like nous pensons si moun n'a pas parler, but si moun n'a smart. Et des fois si moun n'a capacité livre les montrer, but nous pas quitter yo. Oh, y a
Let them explore.
Let them explore. Et puis vous avez dit oh si moun n'a qui t'a là j'ai pas marché. Qui j'ai pu faire marcher sous refuser mettre à terre.
Je sais moi tout cas ouais le ti moun a fait découvrir men. Par contre ça.
Exactly.
Ou bien li camper devant glace ou la première fois et puis li découvrir l'ombre li. Yeah.
Yeah, like buy them like soft books. Like, ça est important pour ti moun nan. C'est pas seulement baby bon et puis faire dormir. Tout ça est important. Tout ça ti moun a prendre dans yeux dans environnement, même bon ouais ou même qui gagne 3 ti moun, il bon. Il vient ti moun yo vient le social. Alors ti moun c'est pi bon bagay.
And that's one of the reasons why I become someone, because my first child was born during COVID. Right before COVID started. I'm thinking, oh, where's the other kids? Interact with, and there's boys just right there looking at me. No, I have to give him company, you know. I can't be his only friend.
Oh God. Well, that's funny, but it does make sense. No, bagay sérieux. Et m'pense, si un parent pas open pour mettre ti moun dans daycare,
yeah.
Créer propre daycare. Par contre, soit obligé de même résultat avec sou mettre ti moun dans daycare. Parce que là, c'est pas seulement sibling, et après l'autre petit monde tout.
Like,
Interact avec
we
l'autre.
grew up with each other. Ou comment ça me dit là? Nous grandis à cousin, cousine,
Mhm.
nous les cousins, cousine qui va même cousin, cousine, ouais. Like in an extended family, we had that social environment. And kids these days are isolated, and especially during the COVID era with the mask, and they cannot see your facial
Your
expression.
face,
They cannot see anybody else's face. Like,
that's the
what
hardest.
society of sociopaths if we're not careful. Because these kids are not going to learn how to emotionally interact with each other or to see other human beings.
And that's
And yeah, it's sad. It's really sad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ça vraiment triste, ça vraiment triste. Et c'est ça que fait choisi parler de ça avec jodi a. Parce que parents, que ou parents, que ou pas parents, il est important pour penser à ça yo. Parce que qui ça? L'on fait ça yo, l'on prépare ti moun nan depuis bien bonheur, ou préparer pour monde là. Regardez nous monde la vie. Ou préparer ti moun nan la bien bon self-esteem, la bon balance, ti moun na build self-confidence. Like c'est aider ti moun nan.
Yeah.
Ou préparer pour monde là.
And that's your job. That's our job.
That's your job. So, Jennifer, I can see that you are taking note.
Yeah, I am. Non, parce que le bagay nou di qui vraiment intéressant. Ça que m'a écrit là, qu'on y a, m'écrit quelques questions tout. Mais m'gagne en question m'a pas posé, mais ça dit tout à l'heure là, self-esteem, balance, self-confidence, li attire mon film. Question moi gain pour nous tous les deux, et surtout Milredy. Et comment vous pensez un petit monde capable overcome stress que la recevoir? Et comment vous pensez que parents petit monde ça capable aider petit monde ça pour overcome stress ça? Yeah.
That's a very interesting question. I don't know if you usually want to go first or
Well,
should I?
Deux questions liées ça.
since you start,
Yeah.
go
You
ahead.
can start. Yeah.
So it's a very interesting question. So the first thing starts with like I said, first I was a nurse, and once a nurse, always a nurse. And even in medical school throughout my career, becoming a medical doctor, you understand one thing. Before you start with any patient or before you start with any problem or any diagnosis, the first step is assessment. So anything you do in life, and that's how I view my life. And that's how I view my interactions with friends, with family members, with my children. So is assessment, right? So you assess the environment, you assess the child, and you're receptive to what the child is trying to tell you. Because remember, the child does not communicate the same way you communicate. You cannot help the child if you don't know what's going on with the child. You cannot help the child cope if you can't identify what's stressing the child out. And you have to be open to understanding and receiving that information. Because sometimes you're not going to like the answer that you receive. Sometimes the thing that's stressing the child out is you. And you might not like that answer. So first you set yourself aside, you put all your emotions aside to receive what the child is trying to tell you. You understand what the child is trying to tell you. Then identifying the stress, you let the child know that, hey, it's okay to be stressed out. It's okay that instills an emotional reaction from you. And the important thing is not that you're reacting, is how you're reacting. Okay, so now we're gonna find a positive outlet for that stress. Because see, if the stress is, you're receiving the stress, you're already receiving the stimulus, right? And now you're holding it, it's inside of you, you have to let it go. You have to find a way, that's the outlet. And that's where the coping comes from. You can either have a positive outlet or you have a negative outlet. Now, when dealing with children versus dealing with an adult, the child is not going to understand positive and negative outlets. You have to bring it down to a level that they understand. So the first thing you do as a parent, as a provider, as a doctor, as an adult in the street or teacher dealing with children is you bring yourself to the child's level. First thing. So you scoop down your eye level with the child. So now it's not, I'm a towering adult above you, right? Now I'm at the same level with you, trying to understand what's going on, right? You get the child to calm down first, how they're reacting. Some children, if the child is throwing a temper tantrum, right, you don't immediately try to get them to stop throwing the tantrum. You have to gain their attention. So you find a way to gain the child's attention first. Eye level, right? You could say, hey, by their first name. Listen, look at me. First, you establish eye contact. They're looking at you. You're respecting their personal space, right? You allow them to react to how they're reacting. That's what the books say, right? You allow them to react how they're reacting. And then once they're calmed down, you address the situation so it doesn't come up again. You talk, what happened? Tell me what happened, right? Because the child is learning. Tell me what happened. And then calm down. Let's take a deep breath together. Take a deep breath, breathe. Take a deep breath, breathe. Take a deep breath, breathe. Now, once you establish that trust and the child can talk to you, they're going to tell you, okay, this is what, this is, and then they're going to explain to you what's going on, right? You don't judge the child because, mind you, this might not be an important issue to you, but it's an important issue to the child. If the child is at the level to express what's going on with them, you listen to the child. If the child cannot express what's going on with them, then you're going to use physical cues. Like, let's say if the child is younger, not even a toddler, an infant, they cannot talk. They cannot tell you, Papi, this what's going on. Then you could use other soothing methods, right? You hold the child, you talk to the child, what's going on? You calm your voice, because now the child is going to mimic how you're reacting to the stress. For example, something that we're clear about. Let's take a simple example of a stress, right? The child falls. They look at you to see how you're going to react to them falling, right? If you scream, what do?
They're going to cry.
They're going to cry.
Yeah.
Right? But if you assess the situation first and you realize that, hey, the child is not hurt, they're not bleeding, they didn't hit the head, nothing happened, and you say, oh, no, baby, it's okay. Get up. And you let them get up by themselves, then they learn that, hey, I'm okay. I can get up. So now the child needs to learn that I'm okay. I can continue. So whenever the child reacts to a stressful environment, they don't feel okay. And as a parent, you have to let them know that you're okay. Okay? We're okay. I'm not mad. Sometimes the child gets mad because they think you're mad. Sometimes the child gets sad because they think you're sad. And they're looking at you to mimic what emotion or how should I react to this situation. So you say, hey, we're okay. We're okay. All right? All right. We're okay. Let's breathe now. Breathe. You see, I'm okay. You're okay? I'm okay. And you repeat it to say, yeah, okay, I'm okay. I'm okay. And they breathe. As soon as now they're past and they're out of that stressful environment, then we talk about it. So, Joe, what happened? What was going on with you? The child can talk. If the child can't talk, then you talk about what you think happened. Oh, it's okay, you know, that fell, it made a loud noise, you got startled, it's okay. Oh, that broke, it's okay, we could get another one. Next time you have to be careful. Next time we're not gonna touch it, okay? And you bring him to the thing. You see this, don't touch it anymore. You see this, if this happens, you teach the child how to react to that stress. Next time it happens, you do the same thing. After 10, 15 times of doing the same thing, with patience, eventually the child should learn how to react to certain stressful environments. You cannot change the stress. You can only change the reaction to the stress.
Exactly.
I don't know if I answered all the questions.
Yes,
Yeah, perfectly.
you are so right, Milredy, and I feel like you are taking my job.
No, you're the expert.
I feel like you are taking my job, but that's okay, pal.
No. I'm learning. I'm still learning.
That make me like happy because you are a father. So if you know all those steps,
Yeah, exactly.
trust me, you're good.
Listen, even though sometimes when that emotional attachment happens and the kid falls, your first reaction is like, oh no, you're you have that emotional response to it. So, you know, that's why you don't treat your own family.
Première réaction on gen là tout le monde t'a fait oui, il mourit. Oui, il mourit.
C'est comme ça, un petit bout de pique. Il pense qu'il mourit. Sometimes,
funny.
il pas même réaliser que c'est mot mourir.
Comment c'est écrit quand c'est le mourir, oui.
With my first son, c'est mon oui là. My mom actually said he fell. Oui, he moved. So that son said he fell. He said, what? I was like, what?
Exactly.
Yeah, so Milredy, I totally agree. And those are the steps, like really. And let's say when it comes to stress, I always identify like I know there's more, but I always identify the positive stress, tolerable stress, and toxic stress.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
And
Surtout
there's a
si,
thin line between abuse and discipline, a very thin line.
surtout si parents yo, surtout si parents yo pas entendre entre yo, et puis ti moun nan font bagay, oh, like some my father. No, that's see, yeah. So tout ça,
Babo.
exactly, tout ça,
maman.
yeah, tout ça rezaille sou ti moun nan tou.
Yeah, absolutely.
Et encore pour dire ça, Mireille dit, so dit à l'heure qui fait me dire, la prend travail am nan mam. Eh oui. Les, yon ti moun ap, jan yore le aten up, nou pa utilize mot ça. Ti moun are just probably having a bad day.
Yeah.
You know? That's what we said. Nou pa di, ti moun, etali kon sa même, no.
They're allowed to have a bad day. They're allowed to have a bad week. They're allowed to have a bad year. They're allowed to have bad days.
Pas pour haïtien, pas pour parents haïtiens. Baton pas joindre. Parents haïtiens, baton pas joindre. Et yo pas pour qui sont traversés. Ah non.
J'ai l'impression, parfois, par oublier si ti moun yo c'est humain, même j'en sais pas avec yo. Pendant ou même ou gen pile stress de ou par contre qui j'en pour payer bill, ou par contre qui j'en pour faire ça. Si moun nan tout il ka gen l'autre stress. Il ka gen stress sinon l'école, like ti moun a bully ou bien si ou li même la vive avant qui a vivre avec stress. Parce que parfois ti moun yo pas di rien, parce que pas égaré.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They feel it.
Yeah.
They can feel it. Like set up like they be going bad vibe, they feel it. You are sad, they feel it. Et c'est ça qui fait travail me vient plus difficile. Parce que moi, en tant que professionnel, que me fatigué, que me pas fatigué, que me des problèmes personnels, que me pas un problème personnel, I have to put that positive attitude.
Yes.
You know,
Absolutely.
I have to be real. And to tell you the truth, just seeing their face, like, oh.
You're happy, yeah.
Of course.
The same goes with social service. Like, no, it doesn't matter what's going on in your personal life. Once you get to that professional setting, keep it at the door. Leave it at the door. Put a smile on, because how you are reacting will affect them.
And sou vraiment pas qu'à faire ça, je pense que profession ça pas pour. Ça peut arriver, en deux, trois, like, quelquefois, like, vraiment, vous sentez down, okay, you should stay home. Take the day off. Parce que nous, tout c'est... Yeah. Des bouts où vraiment, vrai, good humeur pas venir, bon, prend joie. That's okay. But sou tout le temps, c'est comme ça, profession ça pas pour.
And talking about mental health, that's one of the key things I also want to mention. For example, that as parents, as professionals, we learn to identify in ourselves and we learn to identify in others and in children is that if you see those mental health days are stretching out, and that is getting to a state where you cannot no longer perform your activities of daily living. Like you cannot get out of bed, you cannot brush your teeth, you cannot take a shower. You don't find pleasure in getting dressed and fixing your hair. Those are key things that it has to click that wait, something is happening in me. Like with children that do not have those things, those activities of daily living that we identify as activities of daily living, they have their own activities of daily living. Like for example, so where Timuna men take on leve 7 or 8 heures, and then Timuna is active running, mommy, daddy, where un jour, still in bed, 9 heures, 10 heures, they're still in bed. 2 jours, 3 jours, comme ça. Something is wrong. Ou you're pas fièvre, you're pas infection, you're pas malade, you're pas like something is happening. Where Timuna taking your favorite toy. Après ça, ouais, 1 jour, 2 jours, 3 jours, 1 semaine, that toy is abandoned, you're pas jouer encore. Timuna take on regarder télévision, the national interest in their certain things. We have to be mindful that something is happening with that child. And like I said, depression can start at a very early age.
Yes.
Very, very early age. And sometimes we miss that. We miss it because the children do not have the same activities of daily living that we have. And we as parents, as adults, don't give importance to the activities of daily living that they have. What's important to us? Okay, nous allons manger, nous allons rad, nous payer bill là, nous payer l'école là, nous acheter livres pour eux. Oh, tu n'as pas de problème. Ah ouais, man, you get problem pas yo. Just because problem pas yo pas important pour nous, pas problème pour nous, pas veut dire qu'il n'est pas important pour yo. On s'amuse là?
Yeah.
Et na grandi nou même là nous vinn grand monde nous ouais que nous te gen problème dans l'être petit monde. Nous figure it out que nous gen problème dans pour compte nous. Yeah, pendant nous grand monde là.
Like, I don't know about you guys, moi-même, I feel like you're no problem they get extremely that I didn't realize until I got older. What's the word I love you? What somebody I love you, man? Bon manger, bon manger. Manger gâteau.
And therefore,
No attachment.
Therefore, qu'on a vini sur yo et puis ou ba un petit truc qui te marre pour.
Attachment. That's what I'm saying. No attachment. No
Exactly.
attachment.
The kid needs that. They
the
need
kids
to
need that.
hear.
This is very important. Lorsque Timon debi ti bébé, like Timon a besoin d'attachement. Yo besoin d'attachement parent. Ça gen un pile boué avec moun a pied, là il vient grand monde.
Exactly. Mais c'est balance, oui, j'en ai dit, balance. Trop attachement. C'est le problème tout.
Balance. Pas toi. Tout ba toujours gen balance. Pas j'aime trop. Toujours OK. Dans moment pour base. C'est ça que fait dans la vie en petit monde. Like toujours gen transition. OK. On fait ça. Pendant mes matins, on fait ça, premier, deuxième, troisième. C'est maintenant que, OK, ou changer diaper, ou bâtir mon habit, bon, après ça, ou lire un livre ensemble avec. Après ça, on fait tel. Ou que mon routine ensemble avec Timoun. So, bâtir mon attachement, là, ou pas bail 24/7. C'est ça que fait même dit, faut quitter Timoun, développer tout, lui-même seul. Timoun, développer, il besoin de développer lui-même seul. Il besoin d'explorer.
Like, for example, no routine yo, ou établi un sens de indépendance dans Timoun tout. Like, for example, ouais, il lit pour Timoun, dis, choisis qui livre. Ou bon, ouais, habillé Timoun, dit Timoun, qui m'a envie de mettre rouge là ou bien bleu là. Ou bah Timoun choix, certain control over their own lives. Ou ensemble tout là, on va sortir à Timoun là, ou ouais, qu'il fait bon dehors. Qui peut choisir qui soupe il veut mettre, man. Even if it doesn't match.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Give them some sort of control over their own lives, and then we'll buy or say the choices. Breakfast, okay. We have oatmeal or cereal. Qui sauve le manger? Oatmeal or cereal? Keep giving them. Non, les gâteaux.
Des fois, tu faut que tu m'en fait pour mesli. Donc, comment on doit aller en vie manger céréales là, dire OK. Pour côté bol là, pour côté lait là, céréales là, just make it yourself.
You teach them, you help them, build that independence. And si on fait mess là, on va fâcher. On dit, bébé, on fait mess, now it's time to clean up. On va nettoyer pour yon, like moi-même.
Yeah, ok,
and vous connaissez ça qui est important tout? Là, vous faites moun apprendre faire choix pour connaître il est indépendant. Si moun vin build your positive attitude towards life.
Yeah.
And then even comprendre like ou regarder ti moun ou demander question ti mounier. Le ça passe avec moun qui pa vle apprendre bagay ça yo, y a dit oh, ti petit ça trop gen trop l'esprit. Non, ça pas trop l'esprit ti petit ça gen. C'est que y joine tout ça yo ti moun ta supposé joine.
Exactement.
Et ça pas gagné pour ensemble avec manger, ben ou bien gen l'argent pour mener dans docteur. Non, ça gen pour ensemble avec des bagages que il ka fait lui-même seul tout. C'est pas très simple que OK, ou go ti librairie là, ti moun. Moi me toujours encourager moun faire ça. Ti librairie pour ti moun. Ouais, sou bon côté gen. Gen ti librairie ti moun là avec collection livre depuis ti bébé, hein? Puis à l'âge que gen, infant toddler. Qu'on a les ti moun gen ou dit choisi qui livre livre pour lui.
Ou déjà quand moi mettre livre moi-même.
Voilà. Parce que bon pendant nous grand moun grand moun ka plein oh yo pas aimer li oh qui c'est ci qui c'est là etc. Sou pas comment ça ti moun débité tout petit ou pense c'est comme ça là vraiment rare pour yo moun aimer livre like just
si moun pas habitué au cap li.
Exactement ou bien ti moun après juste prendre livre là tant pour you know tant pour yon style OK la classique.
Yeah.
C'est ça qui early intervention, c'est ça qui est important. Et m'vle pour parents yo. Parents haïtiens commencer depuis jodi ya. Fais ça pour ti moun non. Fais ça pour futur yo. Et nous toujours petit ti moun yo c'est futur, so préparer yo.
Ben moi je crois que est extrêmement important dans parents haïtiens, je toujours dit ça, il y a people qui pensent que like I say too much. It's the importance of speaking your own language with the child. Allez créole avec ti moun. Allez créole avec ti moun là. Faire apprendre puis aimer créole puis aimer qui ça y est pour to be Haitian. We have a beautiful culture. Nous belle en pile qui te ti moun apprendre that hey, we're Haitians. We're Haitian American, we're Haitian Spaniards, but first and foremost, we're Haitians. And our language is beautiful, our culture is beautiful, our country is beautiful. So when that child goes to school, they go to school with already a sense of culture within them, a sense of belonging. This is my tribe and I belong somewhere. Lo fait ti moun nan, par exemple, moi ça en pile dans culture haïtienne. Nous avons parents qui m'a même parlé anglais même. A forcé par anglais avec un petit monde qui va parler créole. Les petits gens arrivent à l'école, ils ne sont pas ni haïtiens ni américains.
Non, c'est sérieux. C'est sérieux. Mirel dit, ouais, ou compte qui ça qui arrive, son bagay qui damage accent ti moun. Oui. Sérieux, ma bola. Yon parent qui pas parler anglais bien. N'importe mot, ouais, les ti moun nan petit, ouais, n'importe mot ou utiliser. Pas oublier ti moun yo c'est copier non. Y a utiliser mot ça tout penser que c'est mot ça normal.
Oui. Oui, quand il arrive à l'école, il faut réapprendre
l'anglais encore. Et ça arrive yo pas apprendre ni bien. Ça arrive, il y a ti moun ouais en fait ici yo gen un accent haïtien. Oui. C'est parce que parents qui na kay la insister ensemble avec anglais, il gen na kay la ti moun nan rete avec.
On va apprendre anglais quand même. Ouais, c'est États-Unis. Là, on va apprendre anglais quand même. Mais pas anglais, là, on va apprendre anglais quand même.
Just parler créole, ça va venir.
Non, je suis content que vous parlez de ça, parce que ça a un pile problème. Un pile problème. Et on l'autre bagaille encore, avant nous finir, parents qui pensent aussi si moun nan ap apprendre plusieurs langues, si là quand on parle créole et dans l'école là on parle anglais, là après confuse ti moun nan, ça pas exister.
Pas exister.
Ça pas exister.
Mais-
Vraiment ti moun ça gagne plus résistance parce que ou qui grand.
Yes. To look at process up to from 6 to 8 languages at the
Yeah.
same time.
Voilà, c'est pas
Same time.
opinion pas, c'est facts.
Ouais. Like you depends like tout le monde dans famille. C'est pas ma dit tout le monde dans famille, ma dit ça. That's a lie. Mais gen série de monde qui dépend que série my firstborn pas de parler anglais. On one nous parle l'école avec seulement. And for the first 2 years of his life before going to school, c'est créole il te parle. C'est créole. Oui, l'école là, nous t'en de parler anglais, mais saisi même maman de côté anglais.
Natural, baby. Natural.
Mhm.
And then now he goes back and forth between both of them.
You see?
Jean vle, lè vle.
Yeah. So retire la label ça que OK si ti moun nan apprendre 2-3 langues la pas problème. Ti moun nan pas gen problème, il pas affecté à apprendre et ti moun nan apprendre, il pas gagner pour ensemble avec ça. Et puis pas utiliser mot anglais ou ensemble avec ti moun yo pour ne pas faire ti moun yo répéter bêtises. Surtout les hôpitaux.
I mean to conclude
Now.
to conclude, I guess it's building a sense of identity in your child. Who are you? Ou when ti moun an bezon konnen who am I? Let ti moun an think so ti think fet ap grandi la, I bezon konnen who am I? What is my sense of identity? Even though the child is going to eventually develop that sense of identity later on in life, but at the beginning, c'est nous même k'ap montre ti moun la who they are. Excuse me. C'est nous même k'ap montre ti moun la who they are and who they're going to be as they grow up. And as they grow up, they start developing that sense of self. Who am I? Who do I want to be? Mais si nan commencement, as Haitian parents, nous va montrer ti moun nan nou that you're Haitian, this is your culture, this is who you are, this is where you belong. That helps the child so much with their mental health, having that sense of belonging. And a lot of immigrant parents, I can't speak for other cultures, but especially in my culture, that sense of identity in children is lost.
Yeah. Non, monsieur que gen pas cap fâché, mais sûr que gen pile tout cap content. Et tout ça nous dit là, yo, c'est pas attaquer, c'est pas contre personne, c'est une façon nous voulons aider ti moun k'ap vini yo. Ou ti moun qui déjà là yo. Et nous supposons penser à yo. Penser à futur à yo, penser à self-esteem à yo, parce que m'ka dit un pile ti moun nan génération pam nan ou ba avant ça crée le self-esteem nan, c'est là quand nous sachita.
Ouais.
Nous pas confiance et des fois ça peut dire que nous we put a face we put like a positive face like a fake one. Oh, so yeah nous strong et pourtant en dedans nous senti nous pas vrai, nous senti nous weak, we have low self-esteem. Like, nous pas expresser ça yo, parce que nous pas voulons nous penser nous weak, nous pas voulons et qui pas un problème, ça pas gagner pour avec weak.
Real. That's real. Yeah.
Ça pas gagner pour ensemble avec weak. Au contraire, si vous parlez de ça, c'est pour vraiment strong.
Let's start opening up these conversations and parler de ça en pile. Like let's not be afraid to talk about this in our homes. Like I said, when I was younger, I love you. I felt personally it was taboo until I personally decided, like my sister and I, we started saying, hey, we don't care. Mom, I love you. Dad, I love you. And giving them hugs and kissing them. And then like, I love you. And we started forcing that until eventually, they started getting used to that. Because the thing is, it's not just the parents' fault. They were raised that way too. It's generational. For one, Like they were raised that way too. It's embedded in our cultures, and it has to start with us. Like us as young professionals now, as multiculturally young professionals from a Haitian background to start changing this culture or start building something new. Culturalism doesn't mean that it's stagnant. Culturalism is dynamic. You can integrate different cultures. You can take the positives that you find in your different aspects of in life, different experiences, and integrate it within your own culture. You build it up. Like I feel like these conversations and the platform that you're building is extremely important. It's a huge deal. And I'm glad and honored to say that I follow you consistently, watching your episodes, and it's an important platform. We need to open up these conversations in the home. We need to bring this back home to us. It's no secret. Our home country, it's in turmoil. There's a lot of problems going on there. And there are a lot of heads and different intellectuals around the world who are thinking of solutions, but the solution starts in the home. It starts with conversations in the home. A lot of kids that grow up to be delinquents are not delinquents. They're hungry. They don't know any better. That's their way of life. That's what's right for them to survive. So let's start this conversation. It doesn't matter our socio-economical backgrounds, as long as we start the conversation in the home. We have certain goals and directions for our families as Haitians, and we start thinking that Haitien intelligent, Haitien resilient, Haitien can conquer anything we put our mind to. We give those to our children and we raise them up. And yes, it might not change today, tomorrow, but eventually we can change a whole culture. Like early intervention, yes, there are resources available. You call 311, you're gonna get help. But true early intervention begins from the moment of inception. It begins home. You see the baby is in the stomach, you talk to the baby, you sing with the baby. The baby feels your emotions. That's when true early intervention begins. The baby in your stomach feels what you feel. You're mad, they feel that rush of hormones. You're sad, they feel that. You're happy, you're singing, they feel that. And from that first moment, when you touch the baby, that skin to skin interaction, you're crying and you say, baby, I love you. They hear that. They feel that. You breastfeed the child. You create that attachment with the child. They feel that. The father's around showing emotions to that baby. They feel that. The baby's growing up in the house and you're talking to the child. You're watching television with the child. You're reading with the child. You're playing with the child. This is another extremely important thing. Play with your children. Because through play, they learn. That's how they begin to learn. Through play, through interaction. You interact with the child. And that's how we build a culture. As Haitians, we need to really focus on this. Not saying that all Haitians do it or all Haitians don't do it. I'm just saying let's start a conversation or let's continue the conversation.
And let's make a difference.
Let's make a difference.
Oh, Milredy, mpa kon ki jan ta remersye ou pou chita pale sa e konen ke gen plus pou di toujou. Men mkwe ak sa nap kite la, yon komanseman, li yon pot pou paran yo ka komanse pran ka timoun yo. Ayon laj ki bonheur, parce bagay la il suppose komanse bonheur, et il suppose komanse nan racine. Et ma prend ça ou so di nan komanseman m'a keme ça en tête, bien que m'te parlé de qui ça et santé mentale lié. M'pense que si m'prend plus temps pour me déchiffrer qui ça santé mentale lié, la petit gens pi tolérable pour moun yo, pour yo comprendre qui ça y est et pour yo pas peur les autant de santé mentale. Malheureusement, santé mentale, non, ça pas qu'à changer. Je connais que gen bon moun qui te de changer mental health. Like that name.
No, mental health, personally, I don't see it right. Mental health. Son bon bagay.
Son bon bagay. M konen gen ban moun ki te vle chanje, mette wellness, health, like, men sa pa arrive fet, mwen pa gen problem utilize normal et santé mentale parce que jis wè jenye. Vous comprenez? Mais comme chaque monde pense différent.
Ouais, différent. Yeah.
So, mais finalement, il pas changé. C'est comme ça il était. Et je pense que il est important, même si nous parler pour prendre soin santé mentale à Timoun, non, là, nous prend santé mentale et prend soin santé mentale autour. Parce que, pas oublier, n'importe émotion que vous montrez, n'importe feeling que vous gagnez, Timoun n'a pas senti ça. Et la vin font un mauvais effet, la un mauvais impact sur Timoun. So, commencez par prendre soin tête en nous, pratiquer self-care. Même Jean-Michel, si tu as parlé de deep breath, deep in and out.
Yeah.
Même tous parents, nous besoin faire ça tout. C'est important pour nous. Nous connaissons Timoun yo, c'est eux qui viennent nous. Yeah. But sans vie, nous pas faire pour Timoun yo. So, nous besoin prendre soin tête en nous pour nous caler pour Timoun en nous.
Yeah, and des fois, tu faut connaître le faut pour you slow down. Yeah, because des fois, là, pas slow down, you vient plus stress, and then ça plus by santé mentale, you problème, and then si mon n'a tout vite absolument conséquence. Donc, des fois, faut slow down, yeah, and then
Yeah.
where comment you can move forward, yeah, pendant qu'il y a fait des têtes, il y a fait des petits monde tout.
Définitivement. Et nous connaissons ça, n'a dit, et puis facile à dire que faire. OK, so, m'pas connaît, m'pas dit, m'pas ba yon date, mais m'pense faire yon wellness workshop, à présenter à tout le monde, pas limiter à personne, à tout le monde qui choisit garder. Laisse ça m'a mettre l'inclin pour n'importe monde qui veut participer à participer. Peut-être que m capable à moun la parole, mais moun capable utiliser chat section. C'est vraiment important. Et ça, c'est un pensée que me dégaine longtemps. Ma préfère live une réalité parce que nous
très important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Et l'autre fois encore, Miguel dit, Nabzou, merci.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me on this platform. It was absolutely 100% unequivocally my pleasure. Thank you.
Aïe, aïe, aïe.
Oh my God, Jennifer. Non, plaisir c'est pour nous, vraiment.
Yeah.
Plaisir c'est pour nous, parce que conversation, ça a besoin fait. Puis souvent, même j'aime toujours dire, à nous normaliser et santé mentale, je pense que conversation, ça t'as supposé normaliser tout. T'as supposé normal pour nous parler de. Parce que il y a pas nous qui gagne nan nous, qui t'a aimé, grand moun yo, connaît qui j'en nous t'es senti nous. Et il nous fait ça, ça pas gagner pour avec attaque, non, ça pas gagner pour attaque. Rezoud nous dit ça, nous connaît que c'est comme ça yo t'es levé et tout ça. C'est pas choisi, t'es choisi faire ça. Mais nous-mêmes qui une éducation qui mieux ou bien qui pas choisi focus seulement dans sa culture nous gagner ou bien ça pas nous voulons explorer, nous voulons prendre ça positif dans notre culture ou dans la vie ou différentes situations dans la vie qui viennent faire nous ouais la de l'autre façon et tout ça. So nous voulons porter ça pour l'autre génération qui vient.
Exactly. C'est pas dire nous dire que parce qu'on connaît pas pour écouter ça and I want this message to be clear. C'est pas dire que nous t'es mal fait avec parce que when I look at myself in the mirror, I'm proud to see who I am, and that's because of the parents I had. That's because of the experience I had in my life. That's because of my environment that I grew up with and the people that I interacted with growing up. What we're saying is that there are multiple roads to Rome. That just because your way worked is not the only way, and we have to be open to seeing and accessing these different methods of child rearing, of raising our children. Not saying that it was wrong, not saying it's cultural. I am not saying it was wrong.
Yeah,
I'm saying, hey, let's see different ways.
Yeah.
Je connais que il pas fâché ensemble encore parce que après différence gens ils traité ti moun que j'étais contre tout. OK, so
That's true. Yeah.
They say their job as parents
more caring.
Parent mode is my mode. Grandparent mode is their mode. So
Well, yon lot pa ankon mersi e nap souweto nap souwete se pa denye fò pase nan platform nan e nap partaje tout informasyon ko kite et tout lot informasyon ke nou pense kap ede gran moun yo nan sa ki pou we avèk early intervention and c'est kon sa na fini emisyon jodi.
Mille merci, Milredy.
thank you.
M'apprendre, jodi. Because m'apprendre not. Yeah.
C'était
Papa, that's what
Yuslin.
they do.
Oh, sorry. Ou tap di yon dernier bagay?
No, I'm just saying I learned a lot from you guys too. Thank you.
Okay.
C'était Yuslin.
Jennifer.
A nou kontinue apren kon lot.
Mhm.
Bye.
À la prochaine.
Good
Bye.
night.